Into today's edition of Titans Today, what is your confidence level in Tennessee right now? I want honest feedback, honest answers here. It's a safe space to vent or be hopeful. Scale it for me from 1 to 10 in the comments of today's show. We're going to begin with, they're back again, the DeAndre Hopkins trade rumors. You might not like it, but we must accept it. ESPN dropping a potentially noteworthy tidbit in their latest insider piece about a potential DeAndre Hopkins trade to the Steelers in particular. Here's what ESPN's Dan Graziano wrote. I expect Pittsburgh to continue to monitor the receiver trade market as the deadline approaches. Tennessee's DeAndre Hopkins and Jacksonville's Christian Kirk are two veterans who could conceivably become available and might be appealing to the Steelers if their teams continue to lose and fall out of the playoff race. Now, that is multiple different qualifiers involved there. Conceivably, potentially, might, if. That's a lot of different qualifiers. But there is some logic behind it that I understand from outside the Tennessee perspective. The noise is not going to stop without wins. Because if I were a different team, if I were a contender, and I didn't think Tennessee was, why wouldn't you call? That's a seller, potentially, for you. So it makes sense from an outside the organization perspective that Tennessee is viewed as a team that could move on from a veteran on a one-year deal. Hopkins had a great game last week, and hopefully can have a great game against the Dolphins on Monday Night Football, given the fact that, well, he had a pretty good game last time those two teams played on Monday Night Football, mind you. But it hasn't been great consistency. One great game, 2 games where he was pretty much a no-show. But he was very good last season. Had 1,000 yards. I don't think he's ever going to be peak prime DeAndre Hopkins at this point. I think you can start to see some signs of the just the overall fractures, maybe the signs of regression showing up in his play. It has not been as dynamic as maybe it was supposed to be. From that angle. It's not as dynamic, as impactful. But they need him. Do you want to make Treylon Burks your number 2 wide receiver right now? Because I don't. I am not desiring of that. I don't think that that's a good idea for Tennessee. Because, as we'll get into, it is not just about asset acquisition long term. I'll explain what I mean by that in a little bit. But first, the pinned comments on today's show. Would you trade DeAndre Hopkins? When that comes on YouTube, that's fine. Take advantage of it. Head down there and go vote. Y for yes, N for no at the pinned comment. Here's the pro-trade angle. You are getting a draft asset that can help you a lot more long-term in exchange for an aging veteran who probably isn't a long-term part of your team. Maybe he even comes back next year on a 1 or 2 year deal. But whatever draft pick you get, 3rd, 4th, whatever it is, all guesses there, by the way, no insider info. You're having a potential longer-term asset piece for a rebuilding team. Veterans aren't needed on rebuilding teams. However, you would also potentially hurt the development of your young quarterback by trading away his second-best playmaker and making life harder on him to know for certain if you have a guy or not. And you are sending a message to your locker room of, we don't think we're good enough. You can make, again, long-term, short-term, back and forth. It's not black and white. It's more of a gray area. I do wonder what type of draft pick you could get. And it might fall into you'll listen to offers. Like, you'll listen on Hopkins, but you might not be actively shopping him, especially right now. The trade deadline is November 5th. You have over a month until you have to make a decision on Hopkins. There is no reason to make any moves right now. Wait. Let the next few weeks play out. Maybe don't reject things altogether, but say, not right now, come back later. That's how good front offices do their jobs. And it is their jobs to listen, even if the answer is no in the end. Today's show is made possible by Factor Meals. Look, I don't have time to cook and clean and prep. I simply don't. I have an almost 3-year-old at home now. The wife and I both work. It's football season. I don't have time to do a nice home-cooked meal. I don't, at least not consistently. That's why I love Factor Meals. Fresh, never frozen, dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you might be, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. You can enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle, 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or just eat well balanced. Head to factormeals.com/TitansChat50 and use code TitansChat50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code TitansChat50 at factormeals.com/TitansChat50 to get 50% off your first box plus an additional 20% off on your next month while your subscription is active. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. It's factormeals.com/TitansChat50 and code TitansChat50. The Bryce Young trade's back again. Bleacher Report is the latest to say, well, how about Tennessee as a potential fit? Here's what they wrote about the top fits for a Bryce Young trade. The Jets could be interested in pursuing Young as potential heir to the 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers. The Titans could also be interested to see in the 23-year-old as a long-term quarterback play if second-year man Will Levis continues to struggle. I have a lot of thoughts on this one. Hit him a little bit previously. I think for the most on our previous show that not that many of you guys watched, so we'll do it again. I have thoughts we'll get to here in just a second. But I want to hear you guys first. Your show, too. Would you trade for Bryce Young? T for your trade for him, P for your pass. You're not all that interested. Sound off in the comments of today's show. T or P. We talked about Will Levis on our last show. I get the angst, the concern, the insert whatever word you want to use about his poor play. Here's the core of my issue. Why am I trading for a quarterback that right now is broken? I mean, we saw the difference between Bryce Young and Andy Dalton out there. Young is broken right now. So it's the meme of doesn't work but might be fun to fix. Why would I want to do that for a young QB who's broken right now to learn a brand new offense and, oh, by the way, was even worse? Like that, he did not play well. He was not good in Carolina. He's got major size issues that I think very much came to fruition, and he didn't look comfortable behind an offensive line. Oh, by the way, your offensive line is bad. So the solution is to put him behind a bad O-line where he was already seeing ghosts and hearing the footsteps? No, I don't like that. Look, trying to shortcut the franchise quarterback path and plan doesn't work very often. I think trading for a guy that lost his job as the number 1 overall pick 2 games into year 2 is probably bad. It's probably not going to work out. I'm Tennessee. I'm not giving up an asset and then having the same conversation we're having right now, potentially in 3 months of who's your guy? Who's your guy? No. It's bad asset management. It's bad planning overall. I say no. Now, our goal is 10,000 subscribers here on Titans Today. 370 away. Want free Titans videos? Hit that sub button. YouTube.com/Titans Today. Let's talk Daniel Brunskill. Bleacher Reports mentioned him as like a dark horse trade candidate. They just put him on like the other list. He has 8 snaps this year. He's a veteran offensive lineman who started a bunch of games. So like when you're putting together those lists of like, who can you trade for? I get why he pops up on that list. You know, he's your backup center, backup guard, all that makes sense. He had really bad right tackle play this past week where Steve Ferreira got benched. He tried Jalen Duncan. I actually have maybe a reckless idea. What if you tried him at right tackle? Or you tried Radens again at right tackle? You have an issue. We kind of knew that was going to be potentially the case going in. It's not a great spot to be. He's played there a little bit. Now, he's not a long-term solution. But I'm trying to get through 2024. I'm going to spend a premium pick on an offensive tackle. Kevin Banks, come on down. Will Campbell, come on down. I think I would rather give the veteran a shot here than just sit here. Kelvin Banks, I misspoke. And say trade away a veteran. Now, if you're never going to do it, okay, different conversation. But I'm trying to see what I have in Levis and potentially acquire assets long-term too. So, got to figure out where those older guys fit on your team before you start making decisions. I don't know if Tennessee knows that because you're only 3 games in.